The federal government gets a mulligan for the 2018 Farm Bill with the passing of the new version for 2026 and now gives the hemp industry 1 year to comply before testing and enforcement can begin. Of course, it is now the duty of the Health and Human Services Department to interpret what a quantifiable amount of THC will be allowed in the hemp plant. And this might be a good time for someone to explain to lawmakers that the entourage effect is and how THC interacts with all the other minor cannabinoids in the plant, including CBD. But in the meantime, the DEA released their quarterly report this week on that rescheduling process. The report is a requirement by DEA Administrative Judge John Mulrooney, who put this whole rescheduling process on hold in January. The president's nominee to lead the DEA, Terrence Cole, still has not been confirmed by Congress to head up that department. Right now, Robert Murphy is the interim leader of the DEA. However, with no permanent leadership in place, much of the enforcement responsibilities are falling to deputies. One is Deputy Administrator Thomas Provoznik, who heads up a group called the Diversion Control Division. And now a medical pharmaceutical company in Rhode Island called MMJ BioPharma is calling for Provoznik to be fired and the DEA to be overhauled. Over the past 7 years, that company has worked directly with the FDA in Washington, D.C., assuring compliance for their medical research on Huntington's disease and multiple sclerosis. MMJ International Holdings, the parent company of MMJ BioPharma, put out a news release this week asking for Provoznik to be fired because of the DEA's, quote, bureaucratic incompetence and systemic negligence bordering on malpractice. Duane Boise is the CEO of that company, and he talked with the executive producer of this news show, Jimmy Young, this week.
Thanks, Elena. Joining me now is Duane Boise. He is the CEO of MMJ International Holdings, a company that has 3 different companies under it. Duane, thank you so much for joining us, and tell us a little bit about why this has been such a frustrating process for you, what you've gone through, because it sounds like you've done all the right things working with the FDA, trying to get a compliant medical product to market, and now the DEA is blocking that effort, correct?
Jimmy, a pleasure to meet you. Thanks for having me on the show.
You bet.
Cut to the chase. 3 companies, as you stated. Yep. MMJ International Holdings is the study company. We filed 2 investigational new drug applications with the Food and Drug Administration in late 17-18. And the second company, MMJ BioPharma Cultivation, applied to the Drug Enforcement Administration in 2018 to grow strain-specific cannabis in our formulation. And MMJ BioPharma Labs was the analytical lab, Schedule I license holder from the DEA to do the analytics for the formulation to create the medicine.
Right.
So all 3 integrated to one goal of creating the medicine to facilitate the clinical trials
for Huntington's disease and for
multiple sclerosis,
right?
Primary progressive, right?
And I want to point out that you started this effort when cannabis was strict. It still is a Schedule I, but it was even before the Farm Bill in 2018. If it was, am I right on that?
That's correct. Yeah.
So this isn't a hemp versus marijuana thing or MJ thing. This is a Schedule I substance that you were trying to do clinical trials, and you were working with the FDA on this, correct?
Right. I just want to be clear here.
Yep.
I am an advocate,
yep,
and what I say shouldn't be taken out of context. I understand the legal aspects of what we're doing, but we made a determination early on that the only way to do it federally legal as a Schedule I, we don't care if it reschedules or legalizes or any of that, makes no matter to us, is to do it the way the laws were on the books at the time.
Right.
And that's what we did.
Right. And then we got to a point where you went through the whole process. You were working with the FDA. They gave you some approvals at some point to keep you going. Yes.
In the Huntington's study, they gave us a orphan designation, which is significant. It took a lot of work for the team to get there. And what that does is give us a de facto patent for 7 years on the approved final dose medicine.
Yeah.
And it gives us $1 million or $2 million to offset some of the expense of the clinical trials. And but we decided to go that way versus filing all these patents, because the government actually defends our patent once the medicine is approved. Once that medicine is approved, also, I'll make a note that we would force the DEA to take it from a Schedule 1 to maybe a 3 or a 4.
Yeah.
As a result of the approval. Yeah.
Right. And then what happened? How did we get to the point where you guys finally said, you know what? The DEA is incompetent. I think that was one of the words you used, right? Negligence, incompetence. And to me, it's a lesson I've learned. The government's very good at creating delays for any progress, it seems to be. And you're right in the middle of it.
I come from a law enforcement family, so maybe I'm naive here, and as it turns out, I probably was, to think that they were operating in good faith, because all the roadblocks they were putting in front of us didn't make any sense. So I could go all the way back to the initial investigation when they came out to inspect the security systems and the vault. I had a 10 by 20 DEA-approved vault in the building, and this particular investigator, Tom Cook out of Providence, came out, and he looked like the refrigerator repairman bending over on the floor, and he went down to the town hall and looked at the concrete on the base of the vault and determined that the concrete wasn't deep enough with rebar because of what the first architectural plans were for the building. He forced us, instead of putting, the law says you would have to dig it out and comply, or you could put electronic sensors there. The theory is if somebody's going to blow the bottom floor of the vault, it would set off alarms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tom Cook makes us dig up the whole floor of the vault, report to the specifics, redo the rebar. And every time he was on the phone telling me what to do, I said, but Tom, the reg says, and you can use electronic devices. He goes back and reads the first line and would never acknowledge what I was saying to him.
That whole interview with Duane Boise and Jimmy Young will be released on Thursday of this week. One of the things that has happened during the DEA rescheduling delays is that state testing labs are coming under fire. 18 legal states have recalled tested products with fraudulent results. This puts the public at risk when those contaminated products reach the shelves at legal adult use dispensaries.